It takes more than automatically adding, what is it you're actually trying to do, to all tickets to be a great engineer. This is Soft Skills Engineering, episode 334. I'm your host, Dave Smith.
I'm your host, Jamison Dance.
Soft Skills Engineering is a weekly advice podcast for software developers about all the non-technical stuff that helps you avoid getting started on a ticket because you claim there's not enough information on it.
Oh, okay. I thought this was a recognition that often people ask about how to do something specific when really they want a more general problem solved.
Or the opposite, right?
Yeah.
The classic XY problem, I think is what you're referring to.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah. Or the Stack Overflow thing. I feel like every time I ask a question, you go ahead. You say it.
Well, I was just going to guess what you meant, so maybe you should just tell me what you meant.
I just want you to guess now. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll just say it. I feel like when I ask questions on Stack Overflow, this is often the response.
Yeah.
Which is like,
what are you actually trying to do?
You don't want to do that thing.
Right.
You don't want to plug your computer's power brick into itself.
Right.
Why? Why do you want to do that? Let's do that a better way instead.
Let's find out what your actual problem is. Actually, I make fun of this, but it is actually a really good question for engineers to ask because it happens a lot where people come with a very specific question and it's like, this question's a little weird. What is it you're trying to accomplish? It's like, oh, well, I'm just trying to become a billionaire. Okay, well, I think building a multi-level peanut business is probably not really your question.
Like it's built out of peanuts?
Yeah, exactly. Like the building is made from peanuts. It is multiple levels, but also it's a multi-level marketing company.
Okay. They misunderstood what that meant.
Yes. How do I build a multi-level office? Oh. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Well, what I'm trying to accomplish is scamming all my friends and family out of their money. Oh, okay. Well, I can help you with that.
I feel like that XY problem is common across disciplines, not just software. I imagine it happens.
Wikipedia says that it is a communication problem encountered in the following applications: help desk, technical support, software engineering, and customer service.
Well, good thing I can edit it. Hang on.
And friends and family trying to build
auto
businesses.
Mechanics. I don't know. Now the flames fire directly into my face when I step on the gas. How do I make the flames fire straight up in the air?
I guess you could lump auto mechanics into technical support for some definition of technical support.
Sure.
My car's making this noise, but it needs to make a noise. What do I do?
Oh, you want to impress your friends. Okay.
Right.
Let's get you a haircut.
That was really funny. Oh, man.
Well, should we thank our sponsor?
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Hired, which is the best way to quit your job and get a new one. You will hear more about them later. You can also go to hired.com/softskills to bump our numbers up. I don't know.
Yeah.
That makes us look good.
Tell him Jamison sent you, and this is not an XY problem. I actually need to do this. All right, shall I thank our patrons?
Yes.
The following folks are contributing on Patreon at the level where we shout their name out every single week. They are Valentine at Datafold, Santa Hopar, Noah Fraser Logue, Kent C. Dodds, Memester Josh, Jenny Kim, Owen Chartle, Craig Motlin, I Love Mavis, The Stochastic Parrot, Alice Jost, That Was Cheating Jamison, Lanfair, Pwil, Gwingingolo, Gogorish, Riklung, Roda Blinkang, Ante, Sile, Gogogok, Coshocton, Ohio, Patreon.com.au, we're hiring Ira Chan, Monkey Face Emoji, Jonathan King, Testingisdocumenting.org, Oladapo Fadi, Will Angel, Rocket Chip Emoji, but Rocket Chip is hyphenated, Rangar, Nick Hathaway, Travis Sanders, Braden Keynes, John Grant, Cody Sale, Nick Cantar, and Philip John Basile. If you would like to support this show and get your name announced, or whatever safe for work thing you want us to say, go to softskills.audio and click the support us on Patreon button. And any dollar amount will get you access to our Slack community, and only a substantial contribution, one which makes Jamison's heart skip a beat, will be considered for saying any name or word of your choice on the show.
Your name will be etched in the annals of history. The annals of history are just the backlog of the Soft Skills Engineering podcast.
Right. The reruns. All right.
Should I read our first?
Oh, you read my mind.
Yes, I will now read your question. Listener, not Dave's question.
Okay.
Long-time question asker, first-time listener. I recently started to go back through the original episodes of this podcast, where a few episodes were themed around networking, open source work, and building your personal brand. Let me just take this moment to disavow anything that I've said ever in the past. All right, hopefully that clears things up. Okay, back to the question. I just wanted to share my network equals net worth story. About a month ago, my CEO was terminated by our board of directors a week after it was announced that we were having layoffs for the vast majority of the company. I had been with this company for around 4 years. A lot of my work had been doing open source projects and interacting with various other companies. Unfortunately, I was one of the people who was let go as part of these layoffs. I immediately reached out to various folks in the open source world that I've interacted with, seeing if their companies had any openings. Within 2 weeks, I was able to get an interview and an offer without a technical interview, sorry. Building my personal brand, interacting with the open source community had turned a pretty stressful situation into one that was relatively less stressful.
Nice.
Huh. I'm really glad that worked out for you. It might not work out for everybody, I guess. And it feels like a lot of things had to go correctly for this to happen. A lot of my work has been doing open source. So a lot of your work at the company was on open source, which is awesome. And a thing a lot of people aspire to, and lots of them do not achieve. I'm sure that helped. It'd be interesting to hear how you got that. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great example of why it's important to know a lot of people who can help you in bad times, right? I mean, this is great. And now, as with the tradition of our show, I just feel compelled to say something silly in this serious situation where someone lost their job and got lucky and found another one quickly. Do I have your permission to do so, Jamison?
You have my approval.
I'm just going to poke fun at the question asker just a little because I love you. But I just thought I was reading through here and I thought, oh, there's a little detail in here that got mentioned that didn't directly contribute to the question or the comment, but I think I'm going to play armchair psychologist for just a moment. It's interesting how the question asker mentioned that the CEO was laid off and a whole bunch of other people and me. It was like, listen, I was laid off, but so was the CEO. So, it's cool, right? Like, it wasn't just me. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, That's exactly what I would say too. If I were telling this story, like, yep. Listen, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I was laid off, but they also fired the CEO. So really no one was safe.
Yeah. You find the most competent or recognizable person who was laid off.
Exactly.
Attach yourself to them.
It's like when the Jedi Council laid off Yoda and also me.
Yoda and we walked out of there with our heads held high.
That's right. I mean,
arm in arm.
My head was a little higher than his because he's like a foot tall.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So can we talk about personal brand for a minute?
Sure.
I remember, Jamison, years ago, and I'm glad you added the little disclaimer at the beginning of this one. One of the risks of doing a podcast for this many years is that, I guess, your and my, let's just say, I'm going to venture to say the word wisdom, which might be inappropriate, but wisdom levels may increase with age, and we may come to regret some of the things we've said in the past.
Yeah.
But I do very much remember the episode where we talked about personal brand, and I remember Jamison had a visceral, guttural reaction to the word, and if I recall correctly, you didn't even want to say the word. Am I remembering this right?
Probably. I still feel it.
Yeah.
Say it now. Gives me the squigglies.
Yeah, yeah.
The squigglies are bad in this case.
Right.
That's in case
I'm glad you clarified because it was not clear to me. But
yeah.
I think that when we say personal brand, we have this idea of someone who is more interested in promoting themselves than they are in being helpful and useful to others. By which I mean, if you had to choose how to spend your time, you would choose to spend it creating marketing material about you instead of creating solutions to problems or contributing to the success of a team or contributing success to an open source project or helping out a friend. It's like for some reason the word personal brand carries that connotation for me.
Yeah. It's slightly scammy almost.
Yeah, exactly.
trying to trick people into thinking you I don't know, you know more than you do. Or
Yeah,
something.
it's like the opposite of imposter syndrome. It's like, I'm proud to be the imposter. You know?
Yeah.
But that's not, I think not everyone thinks of that when they say personal brand, you know? And when I think about, you know, what is my personal brand, it's not something that I focus on as a primary goal to build my personal brand. What I tend to focus on as a primary goal is to be as helpful and useful as I can. But then if I take a step back and look at it, I go, oh, I guess that's my brand, right?
Yeah.
My brand is not self-congratulation, self-promotion, and buying ads on Twitter so that I can advertise my own self-awesomeness. Right?
I mean, if your goal is to be as useful as you can, then I think the ends justify the means, right? If it takes a little bit of growth hacking,
Then why not?
a little bit of financial fraud, maybe. Then,
Well, you're not wrong, because if no one knows how helpful or useful you are, then your helpfulness will actually be limited. So some self-promotion is necessary.
yeah.
And I think there's just a balance to be struck here. And I think we've met people who have struck the balance too much on the vacuous, substanceless, shameless self-promotion, and not enough on being actually helpful and useful. And it's those people that give the term personal brand a bad name, because they're the ones that use the term the most and the most loudly.
They go to conferences about their personal brand.
Yeah.
If a tree falls in the forest, does anyone hear it? That's how it goes, right? No matter how many people are... Wait.
Yeah.
Shoot.
There
No.
was one aspect of
If
that.
a tree... Hang on. If a tree falls in a forest and there's no one around, does it make a sound? Is that it?
That is a saying that I've heard.
Okay. That is, I feel like, applicable to what you said earlier, where if you develop some great skill and knowledge at a thing, and you desire to use it effectively and also maybe help other people develop that skill and knowledge, you got to talk about it. It's for the greater good. If you have this weird guilt you can't get over like I do, then just think about how the ends justify the means, like all great people do. Just kidding. That can be tricky. There wasn't technically a question here.
Yeah, there wasn't, but I felt like it was an opportunity for us to respond to maybe a soft criticism of our distaste for the idea of personal brand and investing time and effort into that. Because I think what's actually happening here is this person has presented a scenario that you and I totally agree with. They invested a lot of time
Like
in...
where they got laid off? Or
Yeah, like I agree with the decision to fire this person. I'm just kidding. No, what I mean to say is this person decided to invest time in making connections with other engineers, in doing valuable things for open source projects, and being able to then have access to a network of friends when the time came that they needed it. And I'm sure would be willing to extend a hand to people that find themselves needing help as well in the future. And that's something I absolutely agree with. Now, would I slap the label personal brand on that as the primary motivator for all this work? Probably not. Like, that wouldn't be the primary thing I would say. But I would say that this person has invested in human connection, in being useful and helping others, and that's a great thing. And it paid off.
You don't know. Maybe they pay a photographer to take these classy shots that they use as headers for all of their pull requests. Custom logo that they slap on every GitHub comment. There's one other principle I wanted to talk about, which is the idea of making your work durable.
All right.
You'll do work for a company, and it will get deployed and have some effect within that company. But often, especially if you don't work on open source things like this person, you work at a place for years and then you leave, and there's not much you can publicly show for it besides the experience that you have and kind of the capabilities you have.
And even that you can only really show through your own description of the situations.
Yeah.
You know?
But if you can find some way to create some kind of durable artifact legally without stealing stuff or walking away with a hard drive full of source code or whatever, that you can point to and bring with you. Maybe you keep a lab notebook and then you kind of like redact the private stuff for the trade secrets or whatever. Maybe you write blog posts based off your work experience, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is a form of proof that you can pull out of proprietary work that you kind of get for free with open source work, because everyone can just look at what you do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And I think it's great, to be able to have kind of a portfolio that you can show.
Yeah, a portfolio. That's a good way to put it.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
And some people do a better job at this than others. And honestly, a portfolio it's usually not a deal maker or breaker in my experience when hiring people. In fact, I think I have very rarely gone in and read people's code that they link me in GitHub to say, look at these open source contributions I've made, because it's just a lot of work as an interviewer to do that, And I would rather look you in the eyes, ask you a very pointed question, and then make a decision from my gut. Just kidding.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, nevertheless, like this person has pointed out, I think, a slightly different situation, which is that they did a whole bunch of contributions in the open source community, made a bunch of connections, and those very connections were able to offer them employment in their time of need. But notice how they didn't say, I brought all of these open source contributions with me in portfolio form and presented them to an employer who previously didn't know me, and they were impressed by my contributions and hired me. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
What was it? It was the actual human connection that led to the hire. And I think that's
a good
an
point.
important takeaway here.
Yeah, and that might be easier to pull off at a private company where your work is less public. Like, you just stay in touch with people.
Yeah.
All right. Have we discussed the text?
Yeah. Since there was no question. Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. And I guess what I'm hoping everyone takes from this is that we do agree that it's a great thing to have a strong, vibrant network of people that you stay in contact with, and that you strive to maintain human connection. Like, it's a really, really important thing. I think that, for me, has been the lesson of the last couple of years, when COVID struck anyways, that these human connections are really important, and my work life is actually a big part of my human connection potential. I don't know if James knew the same kind of thoughts, but I do. So, yeah, question answered, I guess?
Totally agree. Yes.
Hey, Jamison, have you heard about The Great Resignation?
Is it that Charles Dickens book? Wait, no. The entire population on Earth has started taking our advice of quit your job.
Oh, yes, that's right. Apparently, we have achieved influencer status. We've been telling developers for years to quit their jobs, and now we want to tell you how to do it. We're ready to reveal the secret.
You mean you don't just walk out shooting finger guns?
Yes, well, you do that first, but after you do that, there's a new service we want to tell you about called Hired.
What is Hired, Dave?
Hired is the biggest AI-driven marketplace that matches engineers with companies. It is a great way to find your next job. I've been watching this industry for 20 years with a keen interest on hiring in particular, and I've never seen anything like Hired.
Tell me about what you're seeing.
So I've interviewed about 150 people in the last year, and I am serious. Every candidate that's come to me through Hired has multiple offers, and they're incredibly high, scary high, like 30% higher than other candidates.
Is that before or after the finger guns?
Yeah, both. But the beauty is it's totally free for engineers, and we would love for you to go try it. Go to hired.com/softskills to check it out.
Hired.com/softskills. Quit your job the best way and check out Hired.
Dave, will you read our next question?
Yes, this comes from an anonymous listener. Oh, no, a listener named Stochastic Beaver, who asks, I've recently joined a big tech company remotely, and my team is super awkward. That's all capitalized, awkward. No one says anything non-work related in team chat. My manager is the only one with the camera on in team-wide meetings. I barely see anyone's face. When I try to chit-chat about their life during one-on-ones, somehow they don't feel like that interested in talking about themselves. So I eventually stopped asking anymore. In meetings, my manager is the most vocal person within the team, and the other people barely speak. As a result, it always feels like my manager's a one-man show trying to make a conversation and discussion and throwing a joke, and the response are usually some LOL in the chat. Oh, that's so sad. It's not that the team members are not engaged on the team. Everyone is very passionate, and I usually see their work-related messages, code reviews, and emails coming back and forth after the evening, even on weekends. Is this normal that all the people are extremely shy on the same team? I like the work and the problem we're solving, but sometimes I find that the silence in the air is suffocating me, and I also want to establish a good relationship with my coworkers. Am I asking too much for them in work? Thanks for listening.
I feel that one man show vibe sometimes. It's not even there's a strong culture of keeping your camera on in meetings at my current workplace, but it's just weird to talk a lot in Zoom to a group of people because the feedback is so muted.
It is, and then if two people try to talk at the same time, one of them ends up not being heard, and then you have to say, "What? Oh, can you repeat that?" It's just
Yeah, and especially if you're trying to be goofy or tell jokes, that's when you need to hear everybody. It's when you need the feedback.
It's so true. And I got to tell you, so I recently changed jobs, and my new job is hybrid in-person remote, whereas my previous job was 100% remote. And being back in an office in a conference room full of people chatting for an hour about a problem, or in a meeting going through, the meeting agenda, it's like a whole different world. I mean, I had just forgotten the joy of being in a room with other people and having these little quips and interchanges that happen naturally between agenda topics that remote meetings just kill.
Yeah. Well, way to brag about it, Dave. Jeez.
It's great.
Just missing on it.
What's funny is, Jamison, you and I can have these joking kind of chit-chat moments. So maybe it's a one-to-many problem, whereas one-on-one it actually works okay.
Yeah, maybe it just doesn't scale. Or maybe if your team did a podcast together for like a decade, then it would be smooth.
You know what I've actually found, and this is maybe an actual answer to the question, or a tip for answering the question, is this person said they've tried doing one-on-ones, but even in the one-on-ones, they can't get people to talk about themselves. You know what I have found is that if you pick up your actual cellular phone and dial the person on the phone and they answer on their phone, and you hold the phone to your ear and talk, it's much better. People are more open. Yeah. I started doing this in my last company, where I would just pick up my phone and call people instead of getting on a Zoom. And we would just talk, and probably 9 times out of 10, the conversation would drift to something a little more personal and relationship building, instead of just,
interesting.
We're at work, this is my chat. It's kind of like when people gather in a cubicle in the office, as opposed to bumping into each other in the hallway. Hey, how's it going? It has that vibe. Also, I think for some reason the cellular network, or maybe the plain old telephone system network, the POTS network, is better able to deliver duplex audio without clobbering people's audio when they talk over each other or whatnot. But anyway, for whatever reason, it just worked for me. It was much, much better.
You've suggested that millennials approach their natural enemy, the phone call.
It's the only known predator of millennials.
Yeah. Fierce apex predator of millennials.
Well, maybe that's a generational thing too, is that I grew up in high school spending a lot of time on the phone talking to my friends. And so maybe this just brings me back. And as I think about the people I've been talking to, many of them are my age, my generation. And so maybe that's actually what's happening here, is it's a comfort thing for me and them. And maybe it wouldn't work if you were from a different generation.
I used to go on walking meetings, and I would have video off so people wouldn't see me huffing and puffing. Which is actually really hard, because especially when I start out, I'm not in the best cardiovascular shape, and there's a pattern of breathing and speaking that I'm used to at work that's based on me remaining completely still, not moving at all, not having any breath dedicated to anything besides just making deliberate noises. And when I'm walking, there's even if I'm not just really gassed, I feel like I'm holding my breath part of the time, because I'm trying not to let out these big, like, whoo.
That's so interesting.
So maybe I'll try on the phone, but standing very still.
So like when you're sitting down, you're dedicating all of your effort to what that one short story calls squeezing the air through your meat. Have you heard that before?
I'm not familiar with that short story. Is that it? Is that the whole story?
Yeah, the whole story is that this alien civilization discovers Earth, and they're describing humans to each other. And the way the aliens choose to describe humans is they're just meat. And one alien is like, well, how do they communicate?
Oh, I think I have read that one.
And and the other alien says they communicate by squeezing air through their meat.
Yeah.
And that's the whole That's humanity.
Yeah, I need the air going through my meat to be devoted to talking, because
Right.
there's not enough to walk up a moderate incline and talk. So I got to train, I guess. I got to train my way up.
I had some great, back when we used to meet, and we used to work in an office full time. I had some great walking meetings with people. Those were pretty effective. I used to do that.
Yeah.
I guess you could and you're saying you've done that on the phone now, except it's on Zoom with the camera off.
Yeah, but maybe I should just do it on the phone. I feel like my cellular network got much worse as well, so the latency is bad. Maybe I'll try it on the phone again.
And then you take a few steps and you drop out of the network.
Yep.
And then a few more steps, you're back in.
Yeah,
it's bad. Maybe you should invest in landlines for all your team. And get those cordless phones that can go just like maybe 100 feet away from the base station. And people can walk circles in their living rooms, or maybe if they have a yard, they can actually step outside.
Oh, I don't know how anybody talks without pacing.
Yeah, I do too.
I am incapable of doing
when
that.
I get on the phone, I just walk circles in a room.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Hope that helps. Let's see. So the team feels awkward. They are productive and engaged in the work, but not in the squeezing the air through the meat.
They're not. Yeah. They have no interest in connecting meat to meat.
This might be a feature for some of these people, because there are definitely people that prefer to operate this way, that like text. Having their camera on can be very burdensome or draining for them. I've known people like that, where it's like a recovery thing, where they need to not feel that eyeball on them, where it wouldn't be as bad if it were in an in-person meeting. So that doesn't really help you change it at all, because maybe they don't want it to change. Maybe they're comfortable with the way that it is right now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I've certainly worked for teams that have very low interest levels in connection with one another, social connection with one another, but are still doing great work, productive, like this team is described. I don't know how to change a team like that, and I'm not sure that I would try too hard, because I'm trying to think, like, what's the outcome you're going for with that?
Yeah, I mean, is it for you to feel more comfortable? So, and that happens by way of more vocal chatter in meetings and more kind of connection about people's outside of work lives.
Yeah.
Which maybe it is, and that's fine. What you could do is have an outage.
Okay.
And then everybody gets on the call, and you're kind of in this foxhole together. And especially if there's an outage where you have to wait for something to, like, I don't know, you're waiting for the database backup to restore.
Yeah.
It's not like you can do anything right now, but you also don't want to just drop off, because you need to do a thing right when it's done. You just sit there.
Yep.
And swap stories and save the world together.
So create a fake emergency.
Yeah. Well, no, just
or a real
make
one.
A real one. I don't know. Yeah, delete some data. It's
Okay.
fine. You have my permission.
All right. And then they can bond over a common enemy. Oh, you could just make yourself the common enemy. And then your teammates will bond with each other against you, but mission accomplished. They're now talking, just not to you.
Yes. Another thing that sticks out to me is this says recently. I've recently joined a big tech company. And it could be just a timing thing that is perhaps exacerbated by remote work, where you're still fairly new to the group and it just takes a little bit longer to develop those personal relationships remotely. So maybe give it a little more patience. One other suggestion that might or might not be helpful is to see each other in person. It's pretty common to have some kind of in-person meetup that might depend a lot on the company's stage and also what's going on in the broader health system right at that moment. There's a time where that was not an option, and I feel like it's starting to return to be an option again. But I've noticed, even if you work remotely, if you come together in person for a bit, you take some of that context home with you back to your remote work, and that can help break some ice a little bit.
Yeah, true.
Maybe they're just tired. You see work-related messages in the evening and on weekends. Maybe they're just feeling sleepy because they're working too much.
Yeah, it's like, well, look, I don't have the energy to talk to you right now. I'm giving everything I got.
You're trying to talk to them about their personal lives. What if they don't have any?
Yeah, maybe they're like, I'm
Because
embarrassed
it's
by
just
this.
the work.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good to bomb though. Or to feel like you're throwing out some energy and getting nothing back. I know that feels bad.
Yeah.
And is very contagious once it starts. Maybe see if you can get an ally. I don't know. Is there one person? Maybe the whole team in a group is tricky, but there's one person you hit it off with, and then can build from there.
Maybe. And that's probably a good way to go, is start one-on-one. The other thing you can do is, oh man, I hate to say this because it's such an in-person thing to do, and I'm gathering from this question that it's fully remote. But the other thing you can do is games. Find things to do together that are fun, lighthearted, easy, and do it. Now, this is classic in-person. So I remember before COVID, I would see teams get together all the time at lunchtime, and they would play card games, or they would have topics they would discuss and things they would do together. And I think this helped a lot with the camaraderie. And I gotta say, I've seen a lot of teams try to do this online in a fully remote way, and it's just a little weird, but it can work.
There's a whole industry that has popped up devoted to trying to make this work, though. If you want to pay money for this, there's a wide variety of options of tools and companies to facilitate that kind of team building while remote.
Interesting.
You can also just, I don't know, you could just go play agar.io.
Yes.
Familiar with that?
Yeah. I have children, so I am familiar with that.
Yeah, just hop in there with your whole team and try and absorb each other.
It's like snakes going around and stuff, or whatever it is. Or...
Yeah. There's a snake one. I think this one is you're a little like amoeba.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh wow, it is heavily monetized since last time I saw.
No, really, it's like loaded with advertisements.
Yeah, I can buy coins and boosts and get skins.
Oh well, that's pretty crucial.
Yes. Well, have we answered the question?
I think so. It's I think my summary is that this is a uphill battle that you may never be able to win, because some teams are, especially if you're not in the leadership role, some teams are very challenging to force this. But I will say that just trying to to append social interactions into the team processes and rituals that are already happening is probably not going to help.
Yeah, it's kind of a cliche to say this, but it is a cultural thing, and culture change is hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to do. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of deliberate effort to move it in a deliberate direction. I guess it's always changing, just kind of.
Yep.
Because it's a living thing. But okay, well, have we answered the question now?
I think so. Good luck.
Good luck. What can people do if they would like their own questions answered?
Go over to the worldwide interwebs. Softskills.audio is the website. Click the Ask Us a Question button. Thank you so much to everyone who submits questions in our forum. We really appreciate them, and we will answer all of them one day.
Indeed. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week.